His Royal Highness, the Prince of Orange, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends and colleagues, thank you very much for inviting me to join you on this occasion of your discussions about Rio+20 by means of a brief video message. Certainly over the past few months we have all struggled with trying to identify what it is that we can hope for and look forward to in terms of outcomes from Rio+20. This summit, this conference, which takes place 20 years after the famous Rio Earth Summit and even 40 years after the famous Stockholm Conference, has certainly given rise to a lot of expectations but also a growing sense of unease. It is taking place against the backdrop of a lot of crises, economic crisis, financial crisis, political upheaval, and certainly a sense that leadership in terms of addressing the long-term challenges for our global community in terms of sustainable development are not exactly always at the center of the stage at the moment. Yet Rio+20 is a summit. It is a summit in the sense that it will bring together civil society, private sector leaders, and many heads of government and heads of state. It is a moment in which we, on the one hand, have to look back over the last 20 years and acknowledge that we have made a great deal of progress, but in fact the overall balance sheet in terms of Agenda 21 and the phenomena that we wanted to tackle in terms of sustainability really is quite a negative one. We have not turned the corner. We have found many approaches, we have done many innovations, and in fact in every country, in every community, things have been tried out and many of them quite successfully. But the fact remains that in terms of our global economic pathway, and the footprint of 7 billion people in terms of its ecological impact on the planet, on the atmosphere, the biosphere, the oceans, we are not succeeding in trying to decouple the future economic development from the negative consequences. Thus the theme of the green economy, abstract as it may seem to some, practical as it may seem to others, provocative in the sense of asking the question, can we actually reform our economic system, has taken center stage in Rio. Green economy in the context of sustainable development and poverty eradication is one of its central themes. It has yielded an enormous amount of debate, and certainly in UNEP we are very pleased that this has happened, because with our Green Economy Initiative and the Green Economy Report, that is exactly what we wanted to do. To put into the global arena of citizens, of businesses and government leaders a number of fundamental questions, but also a number of fundamental principles. Are we able to make a transition towards a green economy happen? How is it being done? Where has it been successful? And in a UN summit context, how can we also as an international community help each other make progress? There are some very concrete outcomes that could emerge from Rio, not least in terms of the principles of a green economy becoming a foundation for international cooperation, for the international aid system, but also initiatives such as Secretary General's Sustainable Energy for All initiative or the Oceans Compact, or many of the programs and projects that are currently being proposed and discussed by member states in New York as they prepare for Rio. So the green economy may not give a clear and conclusive answer in Rio, but it could set us on a faster track to addressing the failures of the last 20 years. The second and other central topic is going to be the institutional framework for sustainable development. It is no less than trying to ask the question whether our international system, and represented by the United Nations 40, 50, 60 years after it was founded, is in fact adequate and appropriately oriented and structured to help a diverse community of over 190 nations and soon 9 billion people by 2050 to come together, to not only view the relationship between nations as one of economies in competition with one another, but indeed as trying to come back to the original purpose of the United Nations, which is to find, despite all the different interests and competing interests, the common theme, the common interest that defines our ability to actually ensure that the principles of sustainable development become realizable. I hope that also the discussions about the International Environmental Governance Framework will play a central part in this. 40 years after Stockholm and when UNEP was first founded, I think it is high time that member states ask themselves, why is it that our institutional framework internationally and the environmental governance system that we have evolved over 40 years is struggling to keep pace with developments. Our challenge is to reinvent also the capacity and the platform on which nation states can develop progressive and committed environmental governance. As you look towards Rio, I think you have a right to be skeptical, but I think you have also the right and the opportunity to demand more. And that is why I think meetings such as this one are a tremendous opportunity to look towards Rio with expectation, to demand leadership and to bring the conviction and the energy that many of you represent to these negotiations. Thank you for inviting me, and I hope you have a very successful meeting. Thank you.